Today we are going to talk about the percent proportion. You have learned about this before in 6th grade math, and we are going to review it today and apply it to the problems that we are going to work on. So what is the percent proportion? Well, let me just remind you, jog your memories. Remember, a proportion are two ratios that are equal. So in this case we are working with a part and a base as one of our ratios, and we're setting it equal to a percent as a ratio. So it's out of 100, we'll have the percent, the number percent over 100. So this right here, voila, is what we refer to as the percent proportion. The part is being compared to the whole, which is the base. Okay, so how can we use this to solve different kinds of problems? Well, let's just take a look at a few basic examples and then we'll look at real life situations. So first, let's say I asked you 20 is what percent of 100? The key here is identifying what you have and what you need to find. So you definitely need to use keywords. Let's take a look at what we have. First of all, what are we trying to find? Well, it says what percent. So I'm going to use the variable x to represent that amount. X over 100, what percent? That's what I don't know. It doesn't matter if you write x over 100 equals and then the other ratio or vice versa. Now let me figure out my other numbers. 20 is what percent of 100? Whenever you're given out of 100, out of 10, out of 5, 1 out of 2, 3 out of 4, the of helps us identify what number is in the denominator. That is our base. So here, out of 100, 100 is going to go in our denominator. And then we are trying to look for our part. Well, what part were we given? 20. We want to know 20 is what percent of 100. So 20 out of 100 equals what percent? So that is the part. This one is pretty simple. We don't even have to use the cross product to solve. You can clearly see that x will equal what number? Ta-da! 20. Okay. Now, the question was asking what percent. When I have 20 100ths, I write that as a percentage of 20%. So just to make sure that you do have the percent sign when needed. No moving decimal points here. I am working with ratios, and any number out of 100 can be converted into a percentage by just taking the numerator and writing the percent sign after it. Let's take a look at another example. A little bit more interesting. So let's say we're trying to figure out 5 is what percent of 8. You take little quizzes all of the time. Sometimes they're out of 10, sometimes they're out of 8, and you might want to be able to figure out, what is 5 of 8 as a percentage? What percentage you get on this quiz? So again, what are we trying to find? Same thing as we were trying to find before, the percentage. So we'll set up our first ratio as x over 100. And again, 5 out of 8, that is our base. So we have a denominator of 8, which means 5 is our part. It's not as simple as the one before. That's okay. We have a lot of tools in our toolbox to solve this. One way to solve this is to use cross products, which I'm going to employ now. So 100 times 5, that would give me 500, and that should equal 8 times x, because again, we are working with a proportion, and in proportions, cross products are equal. So we can set up this equation, we can go ahead and solve. You may use a calculator for time purposes, just go ahead and calculate 500 divided by 8. You should get x equaling 62.5. But again, we're not done yet because the question was what percent, so we need to add our percent sign. So it turns out that if you get a 5 out of 8 on something, it's a 62.5%. Okay. Let's take a look at something a little bit different. What number is 14% of 345? So I'm trying to figure out what number is 14% of 345. So 14% will be a small amount of this larger number, and if I'm trying to figure out what it is we're looking for here, let's just look for the what. What number? Okay, so again, I could use x. You may use any variable you'd like. This time we are given the percentage. So I'm not going to be setting up a ratio as x over 100. Instead, I have the percentage. I'm going to set up this ratio as 14 over 100 because I'm not missing the percent. I've been given that piece of information. What number? If you're not sure if that's the part or the base, look at the other keywords. And here we have out of 345. So this is going to be our base out of 345, which means it's our denominator. So what number is the part? Now we could go ahead and simplify 14 100ths. You can divide by 2 and get 7/50ths. Remember, that's fine when you are solving proportions to keep the math a little bit simpler. But again, I think the cross product might be the best way to go about solving this. So go ahead, use the cross product, find the answer, hit pause, and then unpause when you're ready to see the solution. Okay, so hopefully you've gone through this using the cross product. When you get x, you should get 48.3. We do not need to add the percent sign to this because we are just looking for the number. So it turns out that 48.3 is 14% of 345. And you just want to think about it. Does that make sense? And in this case, again, 14% of this large number of 345 is going to be pretty small. 48.3 is small in comparison to 345. So logically, this can work for us. Always take a step back from the math and make sure you're looking at your solution and seeing, could it work? Does this answer make sense? Let's say I gave you something like this. We're just playing around with different forms here, different missing parts, different word setups. So let's do this. What number is 10% of 12? Go ahead and work through this one on your own. Again, hit pause, and when you're ready to unpause to see the solution, hit unpause. Okay, so what number of 12, x over 12, is 10%? 10 100ths. Again, we could simplify that. We can use the cross product. In the end, we should get x equaling 1.2. This, again, just asked us for what number, so 1.2 is the solution. No percent sign. So 1.2 out of 12, is that 10%? Yes, because 10% is like taking 1/10 of something and moves the decimal one place to the left, so that works. Okay. How about this one? 27 is 90% of what number? So maybe in this case, you earned a 90% on an assessment, and it was 27 out of a total number of points. So we're trying to figure out that total number of points. So again, with the setup, we're trying to find of what number. I'm going to use x again. I'm given my percentage. Okay, so what am I trying to find here? Well, 27 of what number? That is going to be our base. We don't know what that is, but we do know the part. So this would be the proportion we would set up to find this. Please go ahead and hit pause, solve, and unpause when you're ready to see the solution. Okay, so again, you could simplify 9/10. You can use the cross product. You may use a calculator to calculate to save on time. Here we do get x equaling 30. Okay, no percent sign. This just means that a 27 out of 30 is 90%, and that makes sense because it's only a few points difference, so that would be a pretty high percentage. Alrighty, let's take a look at some real-life situations now that we've played around with different wordings. So grab your handouts, and I'd like to take a look at page 18 first. So let's take a look at number 2. You spend 7 hours of your day at school. About what percent of the day do you spend at school? Okay, so this is a little bit different. They're not as clear-cut as the ones we were just looking at, so we have to figure out what it is we have and what it is we're trying to find. So it says about what percent. Since it says about, we can round, which means a few different answers would be acceptable. What percent? Well, we know that we can set up that missing percentage as x over 100 when I'm looking at that ratio. So x over 100. So I should have the other parts. So what's the part and what's the base? Well, 7 hours out of your day. Well, how many hours are in a day? That's the piece of information we need to bring to the table. There are 24 hours in one day. So when I'm setting up my next ratio, the part is 7 out of the total 24. So in general, the total represents your base. And that's really important because, again, in real life, no one walks around going, 27 is 90% of what number? You know, they set up things like this. You know, oh, well, 7 hours, you know, what percent of your day are you spending at school? That's how they will pose the question. So this is the proportion we would use. We can use the cross product to solve. I'll just outline that quickly here. Again, you may use a calculator to calculate. And it says about because I know when you get this number, it's 29.1, I think just 6 repeating. Okay, so you could say about what? Well, maybe about 29.2%, or you could say about 29%. Either one would be acceptable. So 29% of your day is spent at school. Let's take a look at number 3. So reading. So you've read 234 pages of your book, which is about 78% of the book. How many pages are in the whole book? So what I'd like you to do is hit pause, set up the proportion, and before you solve it, hit unpause just to check that piece. Okay, so hopefully you've already taken a look at this and you've set up a proportion. We are given the percent, so that will be my first ratio, 78 over 100. I've read 234 pages, but I'm missing the total number of pages. That's what I need to find. So this is the proportion you should be starting with. I know you all know how to solve these. It's just the initial setup that could be tricky. Hit pause and solve. Okay, so now you have solved it. I think you should get an answer of 300 pages. We do need to label this. Again, we are not working with a percent because we just want to know the total number of pages in the book. So you've almost finished it. Okay, let's take a look at page 20 for a moment. And for practice, I would like you ladies to go ahead and work on number 2, number 3, number 22, and number 24. Hit pause, work through these. You may use a calculator. Hit unpause when you're ready to see the solutions. Okay, so you have gone through these. I'm just going to quickly jot them down. Number 2, it's not always about the final answer. The setup is really important here. So that's the initial proportion. When you do solve this, we need to round to the nearest tenth. We should get x equaling 133.3%. Number 3, your initial proportion should look something like this. And when you solve, you should get 68% because, again, we're looking for what percent. Okay, number 22. We have 88 over 100 equals, and this one's tricky, what number out of 1? So this is going to be a tiny number. Okay, and when you do this, you do get x equaling 0.88. The directions tell us to round to the nearest tenth, so we'll go ahead and do that and get 0.9. Number 24, this one's a little bit trickier. 42% of a paint mix is white. So again, they've given us a percentage. A painter orders 18 gallons of the paint mix. How much of it is white? So the tricky thing is here, what does the 18 gallons represent? Is it your total amount or the amount or the part? If a painter orders 18 gallons of this mix, that is the total amount. So the 18 needs to go in the denominator. We want to know what part of that is white. When you solve this, you will get 7.56 gallons. So again, check more of the setup. That's what I'm concerned with, and then your answers will follow suit. We will practice this more tomorrow in class. Thank you very much.